Hey everyone, chaomix here. Very few things in this world are worthy of being called perfect. True art is something that is subjective, but there are a few things that people generally consider to be masterpieces. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa or Beethoven's Symphony No. 5 are but a few examples. These are works of art thought to have been forged by creative gods on Earth, crafted by true artistic geniuses. They've made grown men shed tears and have inspired millions of people around the world, but all pale in comparison to Sonic Adventure 2 for the Sega Dreamcast. On June 18th, 2001, the stars aligned and humanity's magnum opus was birthed. All aspects of art are masterfully combined to produce mankind's greatest creation. The intro to Sonic Adventure 2 is perfect, and I'm not just talking within the realm of Sonic games. SA2's intro is the perfect video game intro. Narrative, gameplay, story, and nuance. It does literally everything right in every aspect. So let's break it down. Jumping into the first cutscene of the game, we see a helicopter soaring over the skies of Capital City. Listening in on the radio conversation between the pilot and control tower, we discover that this unknown military-like organization is in the middle of making their way back with captured cargo, a hedgehog. Believing everything to be fine, they're soon taken off guard as everything breaks into pure chaos when the feisty creature breaks free to escape his detention. After kicking out the door and jumping onto the nearby side wing of the helicopter, the captured cargo is revealed to be none other than our main character, Sonic the Hedgehog. He then rips off a metal panel from the helicopter, mounts himself on top of it like a snowboard, and skydives down into the city as the scene fades out, eventually transitioning to gameplay. The first cutscene is incredible with the amount of important things it does in such a short amount of time. From this cutscene that lasts just under a minute, we can understand the following. From the pilot's lines of dialogue, we learn that Sonic has forcefully been detained by some kind of military organization. However, we don't know what Sonic did to get himself in this situation, or what this organization plans to do with him at this point. So it's a great hook that keeps players invested in the story. Even for those who have no idea who Sonic is, almost everything about who he is as a character and what he does can be learned in this one scene. The pilot's comments on how the hedgehog has taken out everyone aboard shows exactly how slippery and strong our main character is right off the bat. As he grabs hold of the side of the helicopter, we can see a pair of handcuffs strapped to one of his wrists, showing how he broke free from detainment. After this, Sonic says a snarky quip that tells us so much about his personality. He has a very sarcastic attitude. Even in such a dire moment, he finds the time to make light of the situation by poking fun at his opponents. Sonic is cool. Anyone can tell just by the way he dangerously jumps out from inside the helicopter onto the wing, and then free falls into the city streets with a DIY snowboard. And finally, Sonic enjoys freedom. His sarcastic complaints and escape really convey the lack in his sense of authority and his unwillingness to be detained. In just under a minute, we have a basic plot and conflict established without anything being overly drawn out or spelled out. We have an interesting hook that leaves several questions unanswered to keep players engaged with the story. And we have a cool main character with a very clear personality and motive. It's short and sweet and insanely effective at doing its job. So what perfection awaits us as Sonic descends into the city streets? A loading screen with the stage's name and objective is put on display. This tells you everything you need to know. City escape. Escape from military pursuit. Yeah, you gotta get out of there. We're then transitioned into the first segment of gameplay. There's a lot to unpack right at the very beginning, so I'll try to go over it one aspect at a time. As the camera glares up into the sky, we see our main character finally make his way down from the clouds. Before hitting the ground, the opening bass riff to the theme song of the level begins. And right as Sonic and his makeshift snowboard collide with the ground, all instruments to this song join in at full force. This moment of music interacting with gameplay really just hits you all at once like a huge semi-truck. Definitely no foreshadowing here. Now let's talk about the song itself. This song is extremely iconic and slaps harder than Mariah Carey on December 1st. All the music in this game is amazing and involve the godly riffs of guitarist and composer Jun Sunoe. On top of this is one of several songs to include complete vocal tracks. If you were still unsure what Sonic's character is all about or what the main objective is, this song really just kind of spells it out for you in the lyrics. It's all about freedom, trusting instinct, never looking back, and escaping from the city. Yeah, because That's what we're doing here. From the moment Sonic touches the ground, the player can hear the police radio announcing the escape of the Hedgehog and various orders to blockade certain roads in an attempt to recapture him. It's shown here and only becomes more and more obvious as the level plays out that this military, police-like organization is willing to pull all stops to capture this blue hedgehog. This does two very important things. First, it creates an extreme sense of urgency and danger. With the sound of police sirens in the near distance, blockades everywhere, and the police scanners going off, getting out of this city as fast as possible naturally becomes priority number one. Lucky for us, this game is all about going fast. Just in case you didn't know that. On top of just being fun to go fast, the game pushes the player with its narrative and descriptive set pieces to go even faster. And second, it makes the player question even further why the military captured Sonic in the first place. What does Blue Rat even do to get himself into this insane situation? Again, this is just a perfect hook in keeping the player engaged with the narrative. Okay, let's move on to the level design. As far as first levels go, it's the level design's job to ease players into the controls of the game and teach them how to play. This is generally done in one of two ways. The first being to have disruptive screens of text or character dialogue telling you exactly which button to press and what it does. This is an extremely frustrating and unfun way to learn how to play video games in my opinion. The second and most commonly preferred way is to have the game funnel you into certain sections where figuring out the controls yourself in an intuitive way is the only way to proceed. I'll go more into what I mean by funneling in a bit later. Luckily, City Escape is full of these intuitive types of tutorials, and they blend seamlessly into normal gameplay. In addition, there's a little tutorial robot named Omochao that will explain more explicitly how to play the game if you choose to interact with him. But yeah, don't listen to this guy, he's a chump. By the end, this level teaches you everything you need to know without you even realizing it. Now let's rewind back to the beginning of the level. The first section of gameplay involves snowboarding down the streets of fictional San Francisco. This beginning section is impossible to lose as there are zero hazards, just traffic that can get in your way, and with the only penalty for hitting them being losing a bit of speed. Since you're going downhill, I'm pretty sure you can literally set your controller down and let gravity do all the work. But this section is really great at introducing you to some of the basic downhill level design that reappears throughout the level. This downhill level design makes it so that your speed is always being assisted by gravity. Because you're going downhill. Like, imagine how it feels running full speed down a steep hill. This assist in velocity just makes it so that the entire level is full of high octane action and just feels great to play. The beginning snowboarding section focuses on arguably the two most basic controls of any game: moving and jumping. There are various cars scattered throughout the streets, both in the middle of the road driving and on the side of the street park, that you can attempt to avoid in order to practice moving. There are also a handful of ramps you can attempt to jump off of to do tricks. By the end of this section, you should more or less understand how to move and jump. So once you finally transition into the next section of the level and get on your feet, you can quickly figure out that the basic controls aren't so different. The control stick moves the character and the A button jumps. We then pass by a few enemies, which for the most part are completely optional encounters. You aren't forced to fight them and you can just run past. However, it is still possible to take damage or even die here, so this can potentially teach the entire ring mechanic system. There's also the chance the player can learn about some of the ways to defeat enemies at this point, if they choose to take the enemy on. The important thing to note is that this is our first introduction to enemies, and they're barely threatening at this point. It's also important to point out that this section has this quarter pipe shaped wall that's possible to run on. I remember when I first did this, it really opened my eyes to how flexible this game's physics were. As we keep moving on, we eventually get to the first real funnel of the game. No matter what angle or slightly alternate route you take so far in this level, you will end up literally being funneled into this small opening with some wooden crates blocking the way. The only way to proceed is by somersaulting into the crates to break them and clearing a path. However, this area also has an enemy standing in the corner shooting at you. This is the first somewhat threatening enemy of the level, and because figuring out a new mechanic under the stress of an enemy shooting at you kind of blows, many players will naturally opt to figure out ways to defeat this enemy first by eventually either jumping into them with a homing attack or pressing the B button to do a somersault. Either way works, but if the player defeats the enemy with a somersault, it's a pretty big hint for how to get past the wooden boxes. Getting past these boxes isn't really a difficult puzzle though, but it is required and teaches an important mechanic often used for the rest of the game. Proceeding, we get introduced to the first super obvious grindable rail in this game. One thing players should have learned by now is to jump on everything. If done on the rail, players will attach themselves onto it and use the downhill momentum to grind down. This is a super stylish and important mechanic used throughout the entire game. Eventually, we make our way to some more trick ramps. If players were able to figure out how to do tricks on them while snowboarding, they function the exact same way on foot and can also be used for tricks. The main difference though is that it's much easier to run back to these ramps on foot to retry them and test them out. After running down the wall of a huge building, players hit a spring and are sent swinging around a horizontal pole. If timed correctly, it'll launch Sonic into the upper path with some goodies. If not, they take the lower path and have to deal with an enemy. This is one of the game's first major ways of showing players that skillful play is heavily rewarded and poor play can be punishing. If the player does manage to get to this upper path, they can attempt to do some chain homing attacks on the enemies in a line floating above a bottomless pit. It's riskier but gives a ton of points, rewarding the player for their skills. And finally, the transition into the last section of the level once again funnels players into a narrow path, blocked off by a chain link fence with a gap underneath it. It forces players to proceed by somersaulting under, and is an obstacle occasionally used later in the game. In terms of level design, City Escape does an amazing job at gradually teaching players the controls and mechanics of the game. It isn't disruptive, and it feels completely natural to play through. The final aspect I want to talk about is, City Escape is awesome. Not only is fictional San Francisco such an awesome setting, but the set pieces are used in such amazing and creative ways. City Escape is this crazy mix of realistic architecture with crazy floating platforms and bottomless pits. It's the most video game thing ever camouflaged into a real-life setting. Everything about this level is just a heightened version of reality. It's the suspension of disbelief, intentionally ignoring the fact that none of these things make any sense logically. Why is there a loop-de-loop on top of this tall building? Why is this section of the city only accessible by taking a spring up to the higher level? Why are there trick ramps in the middle of the city streets? Why is there a bottomless pit in the city park? It doesn't matter. The level is somehow extremely in your face about the crazy design while also still somehow blending into the environment almost naturally. It walks this crazy thin line between fiction and reality. It isn't afraid to give spectacle even though it's based in a very real place. Speaking of spectacle, I think I might be forgetting one more thing. The gun truck, baby! This is hands down one of the coolest parts of the entire level, and possibly the most memorable insane set piece in the entire series. In a last-ditch effort to stop the hedgehog that's been blowing past every obstacle put in his way, Gun sends out the Big Guns, an enormous semi-truck that literally takes up every lane in the road, plowing through anything and everything in its way. This downhill chase points the camera angle facing the front of the player in order to show the insane persistence of this comically huge vehicle. It's one of the most hilariously over-the-top things I've ever seen in a Sonic game, and it really is just the icing on the cake for an already amazing stage. City Escape is perfect in every aspect. It's the combination of all of its amazing elements that make this one of the most memorable first levels to any video game ever. It's the amazing music, hype start, non-disruptive tutorial, and its entire aesthetic and spectacle that make this the perfect level. Pair this with the incredible intro that sets the entire tone for the rest of the stage, and there you have it. The perfect intro to a video game. Sonic games have always been great at creating really memorable and iconic first levels, but this one still takes the cake for being the best one. Even going outside of the realm of Sonic, I seriously think this is the greatest video game intro of all time. Few things in this world are perfect, but this is one of them. Hey everyone, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you like what you saw, press that like button, and hit subscribe for more content similar to this. I try uploading at least one video every week. In the comments below, let me know your favorite intro level to a Sonic game. Is it City Escape, or do you completely disagree with me? Let me know. If you want to come watch me play some games, tune into my Twitch channel. I stream every Wednesday and Sunday. And finally, if you're a mega fan of chaomix, join the community Discord. We talk about Sonic, share art, and play games. Links to everything in the description. And as always, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Peace.